Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News at 9, coming to you live from the Newsfirst centres here in Colombo. I'm Stephanie Lazarus and here are your headlines. Secretary to the President responds to charges levelled by former President Kumaratunga. France currently supports the drafting of a resolution on Sri Lanka. A statement by the French Foreign Ministry. Fallen police servicemen commemorated. And on international news tonight, we've got the European Union broadening sanctions on Russia. Let's now cross over to our main desk for a more comprehensive look at these stories.
Well, thank you very much, Stephanie Lazarus. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Nadim Majid.
I'm Minoshi Ratnasekara, and let's take a look at your top story for tonight. Media reports say that former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga has addressed a letter to President Mahinda Rajapaksa informing him that her privacy has been obstructed and that her security is under grave threat as a result of government intelligence services spying on her continuously and collecting information on her. The report notes that the former president says in a letter that the activities of the intelligence services have violated her fundamental rights and her right to live in freedom has been obstructed. Meanwhile, addressing a letter to the former president, Secretary to the President Lalit Weeratunga responded.
The media report notes that the former president has said that a suspicion has arisen as to whether plans are being made to act against her as a result of the continuous spying into her comings and goings and the people she meets. According to the report, Kumaratunga also noted in her letter that intelligence services under the purview of the Presidential Secretariat and the Ministry of Defence are monitoring her telephone calls and emails constantly and that they are surveilling her residences in Colombo and Horogolla. Furthermore, according to the report, the former president notes in her letter to the president that intelligence services had conducted surveillance on her during a recent visit to Kurunegala and Anuradhapura and that members of her security detail had identified these intelligence personnel. She notes that although she had addressed a letter to the Defence Secretary, the Inspector General of Police and several ministers regarding the harassment she has been facing, no consideration has been shown as yet. The report further notes that the former president has stated in her letter that as a result of the actions of the government and in fear of the white man culture, her friends too have abandoned communicating with her. Furthermore, the report adds that the former president requests the president through her letter to take steps to instruct the relevant units to immediately cease the illegal surveillance they are conducting on her.
Now, in a letter that was released to the media, the Secretary to the President, Lalit Weeratunga, responded to the allegations that were levelled by former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. We'll have more on that letter coming up later in the bulletin. Moving on to more local stories, Sunitha College, the school constructed in the Wataraka area in Homagama, which will educate prison inmates, was declared open by the President.
Education is a basic human right and the school was built with this intention in mind. The President inspected the classrooms and all other facilities in this school, which is a first of its kind in Sri Lanka.
When Kapetipola was killed, he worshipped Lord Buddha and also the temple of the tooth relic, and then he instructed the Briton to behead him. He was brave and even the Briton was surprised by it.
දළදා වහන්සේට අපහාස කරන්න තමයි එල්ලුම්ගහ හරියට දළදා වහන්සේ ඉස්සරහා බලාගෙන මාලිගාව බලාගෙන හාමුදුරනේ ඒක හැදුවේ නිකන් නෙවෙයි.
People who talk and question us about human rights and religion treated us like that also. They are the ones who instructed that all boys over the age of 14 and 16 be killed. I am saying it differently today. We do not think like them and their lies are strength.
ඔවුන් නිතර විදියට නෙවෙයි. ඒක අපිට තියෙන ශක්තිය.
The French Foreign Ministry says that France currently supports the drafting of a resolution at the United Nations Human Rights Council on Sri Lanka.
A statement published by the spokesperson of the French Foreign Ministry on the website of the French Embassy in Sri Lanka notes that France currently supports the drafting of a resolution on Sri Lanka in order to remind the authorities of Sri Lanka of the need to implement measures to ensure national reconciliation, which requires respect for human rights under all circumstances and actions to combat impunity. The statement notes that France continues to closely monitor the human rights situation in Sri Lanka.
Now, on the topic of the draft resolution on Sri Lanka, Australian media reports say that the Australian government is resisting a push by its closest allies to establish a United Nations investigation into alleged war crimes and human rights abuses in Sri Lanka, where Australia has returned more than 1,100 failed asylum seekers in the past 18 months. The Sydney Morning Herald quoted Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop as confirming that Australia had not co-sponsored the resolution and wanted a motion to reflect progress in reconstruction and rehabilitation in Sri Lanka.
The report on the Sydney Morning Herald notes that Australia has previously co-sponsored resolutions at the UN's Human Rights Council expressing concern on Sri Lanka's record, but is understood to have exasperated the US, Canada, Britain and the European Union by not yet backing this year's resolution. Foreign Minister Julie Bishop said that the Australian government wanted to see a final text of the resolution before deciding whether it would co-sponsor the resolution. The SMH quoted Bishop as saying in an email that Sri Lanka has made progress since the end of the violent civil war in 2009, including on reconstruction and rehabilitation, and we expect this to be reflected in any final text. She added, and I quote, "We encourage all parties to take a constructive approach to assist the process of reconciliation in Sri Lanka." The Sydney Morning Herald reports that any inquiry could place Australia's policy of returning Sri Lankan asylum seekers in jeopardy. The SMH report notes that returning asylum seekers to a country where there remains a genuine fear of persecution is illegal under international law.
Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe, Special Envoy of the President on Human Rights, says that the objective of the current version of the resolution on Sri Lanka, that is before the Human Rights Council, is distancing religious communities from one another. At a meeting held on the sidelines of the 25th regular session of the UNHRC in Geneva, the minister said the draft resolution unduly focuses on alleged instances of religious disharmony in Sri Lanka.
The Sri Lankan delegation in Geneva briefed the countries representing the Organization of Islamic Cooperation on the current situation in Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Council at the Palais des Nations in Geneva yesterday. Minister Samarasinghe informed the permanent representatives and ambassadors of the steps taken to ensure progress in Sri Lanka towards reconciliation and peace building in the aftermath of the armed conflict. The minister outlined the constitutional protection of the freedom of thought, conscience and religion, as well as the right to manifest a person's religion in Sri Lanka. He said Sri Lanka has long been a multi-religious, multilingual and multicultural society in which diversity is celebrated and perceived as a source of strength in the forging of a true national identity. He added that the nurturing of unity in diversity is of paramount importance. Minister Samarasinghe noted that the resolution is not merely political in its motivation, but could also hamper and undermine the national reconciliation underway at present. He said that the individual motivations of the proponents of the resolution to achieve political ends through this resolution are clear. The minister called on the OIC countries to show solidarity with Sri Lanka in defeating the politically motivated attempts to initiate an international inquiry mechanism under the guise of an investigation to be carried out by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva and Sri Lanka's permanent representative in Geneva, Ravinatha Aryasinghe, were also present at the briefing. Now, as we informed you at the beginning of this news bulletin, in a letter addressed to President Mahinda Rajapaksa that was published in the news media, former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga levelled various allegations at intelligence services in the country, saying that they had been spying on her continuously and had thus invaded her privacy. Now, in a letter that was released to the media, the Secretary to the President, Lalit Weeratunga, responded. Let's now take a look at the content of that letter.
A copy of the letter addressed by Secretary to the President Lalit Weeratunga to the former President in response was also released to the media. The Secretary to the President has penned this letter under the title The Harassment of Former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga Through Illegal Surveillance. Weeratunga notes in the letter that he had been instructed by the President to respond to the letter dated the 5th of this month. Translated extract.
The President wishes to point out that there isn't a shred of evidence to justify the numerous accusations you have levelled at the government, police and intelligence services of this country.
End of translated extract. Secretary to the President Lalit Weeratunga notes further that the response to the former President's letter was delayed as a broad investigation had to be carried out to ascertain the facts of these allegations, since there was no proof in keeping with the nature of the allegations. Translated extract.
Although you have raised various allegations with regard to the invasion of your privacy, harassment, suspicion regarding your personal safety and the violation of your freedom of movement and association, the President observes that there is no evidence or cause for such. It is evident that all of your allegations are causeless fabrications. The President further guarantees that there is no surveillance being carried out into your telephone and email communications or your residences in Horogolla and Colombo.
End of translated extract. The Secretary to the President also points out that among the complaints that have been made by the former President, a time frame has only been mentioned in one incident, this being a written complaint made on the 10th of October 2009 to the Inspector General of Police at the time, Jayanta Vikramaratne, stating that officials who identified themselves as being attached to the intelligence services had visited several of her friends' homes and had questioned them. The letter addressed by Lalit Weeratunga notes that there is a justifiable suspicion as to whether these were in fact officials or officials of the intelligence services. The letter further notes that the President had stated that no investigation can be undertaken into the truth of these allegations, since there has been no mention of locations, individuals, time frames or any other factor or evidence. Translated extract.
The allegations you have levelled become more grievous when you note that pressure had been exerted on your friends and colleagues, that you have undergone major stress as a result, and that senior members of our party and our government have ceased communications with you as per the instructions of the President in the 8 years since the President came into power.
End of translated extract. In the letter, Weeratunga notes that the President is of the view that if the former President is able to submit the name of even one individual who has exerted such pressure, it would assist in ascertaining the truth. Translated extract.
The President is most amazed by the reference you have made to a white van culture. He is of the view that if this culture arose prior to your presidency, you should have been well aware of it throughout your presidency.
End of translated extract. Secretary to the President notes that steps were taken to eradicate the terrorism of torture and bloodshed, adding that there were no white vans within the political culture under the present government. The letter further notes that this exists only within the minds of individuals who are working to destroy the image of our country in accordance with the agendas of certain forces. Translated extract.
While you have noted that you are suspicious regarding your security owing to the modern procedure of destroying senior authorities of your government through murder, abduction and assault, the President categorically rejects this allegation. While this allegation is devoid of truth, the fact that prominent persons who strongly opposed and severely criticized this government now hold senior positions in the government establishes the false nature of this allegation.
End of translated extract. Translated extract.
The President, who rejects the allegations that you have levelled, including the violation of your fundamental rights, the violation of your right to privacy and the alleged harassment of you, further guarantees that you have no reason to be suspicious of your personal security. While he guarantees the freedom of all citizens as the Executive President, as per this procedure he has not foregone guaranteeing the basic freedoms of the former President. As stated before, the President, who rejects the allegations you have levelled regarding the activities of the National Intelligence Services, recalls that members of the Presidential Security Division during your regime were involved in major crimes. He expresses his happiness at the fact that there are no such incidents today.
End of translated extract. The Secretary to the President, who further notes in this letter that while officers have been assigned to provide security for her, given that she is the former President and that it is the duty of the police to provide security at locations that she visits, adding that the President is of the view that it is unwise to interpret this as intentional spying. The letter further notes that the President guarantees that the law will be enforced against any person who violates crime prevention laws under the police ordinance. Translated extract.
Finally, the President observes that your letter has been penned at the same time that international forces are levelling wholly false allegations against Sri Lanka in Geneva and other Western nations.
End of translated extract.
The 150th Police Heroes Day commemoration was held at the police field headquarters in Timrigasiyaya today. The event, held to commemorate 3,107 police heroes, was graced by the Inspector General of Police.
Police Heroes Day is commemorated annually on the anniversary of the death of the Constable P.C. Saban, who was shot and killed by Mammale Marikar, a friend of the outlaw Sardiel, on the 21st of March 1864 in Utuakanda. Police Heroes Day commemorates police officers who sacrifice their lives in order to bring forth a safe and secure society. A commemorative event to mark the 150th Police Heroes Day commenced with the IGP lowering the police flag opposite the Police Heroes Memorial to half-mast. Salutations were paid to the memorial following the commemoration of those officers who sacrificed their lives to ensure law and order. The Ayurvedic Medical Center, constructed on the premises of the Police Field Force Headquarters, was also declared open today, parallel to the commemorative event.
As the Inspector General of Police, on behalf of the Police Department, I express my heartfelt condolences to the families of the 2,585 officers who gave their lives to maintain the integrity of this country, who were killed during acts of violence in the line of duty, and those who were killed in road accidents and other incidents.
Events were also held in several other parts of the country to commemorate the 150th Police Heroes Day. A group including the grandson of the Constable P.C. Saban, on whose death anniversary Police Heroes Day is marked, participated on the commemorative event held at the premises of the officer of the Senior Superintendent of Police in Chilao.
My grandfather's name was Saban. My grandfather was killed in the incident involving Sardiel. I am immensely grateful to those in the Chilao Police who have erected this memorial to commemorate those individuals.
A commemorative event was also held at the Saban Memorial in Mavanella. Police Heroes Day was also commemorated at an event held at the Monragala Public Sports Ground.
The EU has expanded its targeted sanctions against Russian officials blamed for destabilizing Ukraine, but has not yet agreed upon broader economic measures. The move was the latest escalation in the clash over Ukraine's Crimea, the greatest geopolitical showdown between Russia and the West since the end of the Cold War.
At a summit in Brussels, EU leaders agreed to ask the European Commission to prepare an assessment of the potential impact of broad economic sanctions against Russia.
The European Council has decided to expand the list of individuals subject to visa ban and asset freeze. We put forward another 12 names to the list of 21 agreed to earlier this week. We are also cancelling the next EU-Russia summit, and member states will likewise cancel regular bilateral summits. We make clear that failure to settle the crisis peacefully and any steps by Russia to destabilize Ukraine will have far-reaching consequences. And by that we mean consequences on relations in a broad range of economic areas. We ask the Commission and the Member States to prepare possible targeted measures.
From his training camp in Hollywood, Florida, Ukrainian boxing champ Vladimir Klitschko said Ukraine had the right to choose its own course without intervention from Russia. Looking into cameras gathered on the side of a boxing ring, Klitschko sent a direct message to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
And Ukraine, in a certain way, like brother of Russia, or people call it little brother and big brother, Russia and Ukraine. In a certain way, I can compare Vitaly and myself. It doesn't mean if my older brother tells me, Vladimir, you're going to do this in the way that I want you to do that, I'm going to tell him, chill. Because I have my own character, I have my own life, I have my own opinion, which direction I want to go. And nobody going to force me.
The Russian national tricolour and the Russian Navy flag were flying on a pier in the Crimean port of Sevastopol, where 2 Ukrainian Navy corvettes were anchored, suggesting the warships were seized. There were no flags on display on the sterns of the corvettes called Latsk and Kremlinsky, where the national symbols would normally be visible. Russian seized vessels were later towed away from the harbour, while other ships remain under Ukrainian control. Residents of Crimea's port city of Sevastopol queued up in long lines to get their Ukrainian passports exchanged for the Russian ones. Russia began issuing Russian passports to Crimeans on Wednesday. In Sevastopol, those who applied on Thursday are promised to receive their new documents in 2 weeks. Russian officials are moving swiftly to integrate the region and bolster an economy that has been dependent on Kiev for 85% of its electricity, 90% of its drinking water, and some of its food supplies.
Now, Newsfirst bureau correspondent Elnas Korakod now joins us from Moscow, Russia, with the latest on this rapidly unfolding situation.
The new sanctions were in response to those of Russia's parliament ratifying the reunification of Crimea with Russia after 60 years of post-Ukraine. A referendum in the region held Sunday, some voters overwhelmingly support leaving Ukraine and joining Russia. EU officials have described 3 rounds of sanctions against Russia. The first one is suspension 3 weeks ago of negotiations on visa liberalization to the EU travel between EU member states and Russia. That was followed this week by targeted sanctions against officials, including asset freezes and visa bans. Russia.
Now let's take a look at some of the views that were expressed on the election stage.
Which parent tells their child to become a politician when they grow up? Is the politician a bad person? Is he not a role model? There are times when he could be. In our society, there are politicians who are role models and politicians who are not. An election is an important occasion. It is an occasion to reject such persons and retain the educated, the intelligent and law-abiding individuals in politics.
Politics as a whole is in the hands of ethanol and drug smugglers. How much do you shake with fear when you think about your children? You wonder what habit they will get addicted to. You are afraid to let your child go and play with the boys on the beach because you fear what kind of trouble he will get into. We have been made to raise our children in fear.
Make an effort to send your child to the Dhamma school. When he receives an education on the Dhamma, he will become a self-disciplined individual. We who are going to be politicians and you as parents have been vested with the responsibility of creating a society where they can determine the path of their lives for themselves and enable them to select the right path instead of saying foolish things like we must ban the internet or ban Facebook.
This is a time when the people need to think about whether they are going to stop electing people who pickpocketed votes and deceive the people, or if they are going to elect persons who have lived amongst them, have understood their pulse and can identify their votes and their sweat to the provincial council.
My friends, please think about every mother and every father that has a child. That is why we are battling in the election that will be held on the 28th and the 29th. We have a national duty to carry out. Some in Colombo are lighting incense sticks and are watching Geneva, praying that someone will come from above and take Mahinda Rajapaksa away.
When looking at modern politics, we wonder where the policies are. The roads are being carpeted, concrete roads are being built, expressways are being opened, ports and airports are being built. In terms of development, this country is moving forward day by day. But look at the things on the other hand. The provincial councillor made a teacher kneel before the Northwestern Provincial Council was dissolved. Parliament MPs and ministers have been caught with containers of narcotics and ethanol spirits.
We have done many things in the modern way and have provided all facilities for the people of Mahavakta. I think there is something that you must keep in mind. There are parents in this area. They must know. And all of Eastern Colombo must know that I have the enthusiasm to do a major service here. So I ask that you cooperate with me in whichever way you can so I can fulfill this want.
තමුන්ලන් කරන්න පුළුවන් හැම සහයෝගයක්ම දෙන්න.
Now, still on the election stage, another episode of Sirius TV's Sutton Political Debate program was telecast on Sirius TV last night. Let's take a look at a few excerpts from the program.
එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂේ නායකයා පෞගේ කාලේ කොහොමද කටයුතු කළේ?
How did the leader of the United National Party act in the recent past? At the very least, he could not retain and protect the public representatives elected from his party by the people, and the leaders of this party are going over to strengthen the arms of the leader of the country. At a time when the task of the opposition is not being carried out in this country, there is nothing left to do but abandon it. That is what I did. Today, we, the Democratic Party, are not being allowed to hold a meeting.
චණ්ඩින්ගේ ආණ්ඩුව අද චණ්ඩිකමත් මාරු වෙවි තියෙනවා.
You said that this country is facing a crisis internationally. Is it true that there is an international conspiracy? Internationally, the country is clearly facing a major challenge at this instance. We can see this. Today, the United States of America is introducing a resolution against our country in the United Nations Human Rights Council. The intention of this resolution is clear. Their request is that our war heroes be punished on the basis that we committed war crimes and violated human rights during the war. Do you believe that they are attempting to punish war heroes? It was the army that went into war. President Mahinda Rajapaksa or the Defence Secretary were not on the battlefield.
Now, the Minister of Higher Education, S.B. Dissanayake, says that the President has focused his attention on providing a university complex premises to the Nuwareli area. The Minister made this statement in response to a question raised in Parliament yesterday by General Secretary of the Citizens Front, MP J. Sriranga.
Around 26 persons enter the medical faculty from the Nuwareli district, while another 21 enter the engineering faculty. Those in Hanguranketa continue to think that Minister S.B. Dissanayake is their minister. He should make an attempt to establish a university over there. Why? Because during the rule of Chandrika, Minister Sarath Amunagama announced in Parliament that 500 million rupees will be allocated from the budget for this purpose. We don't know what happened to that money. The locals in those areas are still having. Students who go abroad could have entered this said university. If you are actually establishing private universities, opportunities need to be given to 50% of local students and 50% of international students to study there. If such a proposal is brought forward, we will support it.
The President has directed his attention to not only construct a university, but a university complex. That is how the University of Sabaragamu began. Attention has been focused on this. However, MP Ranga, we require at least 100 acres of land for this. You need to support this. It is then that we can provide something for the Nuwareli area. Honorable Speaker, we are not suppressing students. We need to discipline them.
Now on the topic of education, speaking at a public rally held in Walasmulda today, MP Sajid Premadasa made these remarks.
Minister Bandulu Gunawardhan recently put forward a proposal to the cabinet. It was a proposal to hold English language listening and speaking tests at future examinations. I wish to ask Bandulu Gunawardhan, who is preparing to get our children to participate in this examination if the shortage of English teachers in the country has been covered? In truth, no, it has not. Before we subject children to English language listening and speaking tests, have language laboratories been established at every school in the country? In truth, no.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka states that policies that affect interest rates will remain unchanged this month. Issuing a communique, the Central Bank stated that their aim is to increase the money flowing into the private sector.
The central bank notes that the loans the Sri Lankan government has acquired from local banks has risen significantly in the month of January. The loan acquired by the government from local banks rose by 68.3 billion rupees. However, the loans that the private sector has taken from banks has significantly decreased in the same month. The Monetary Board anticipates the loans taken out by the private sector will increase in the second quarter, and the current decrease is only temporary. Meanwhile, the central bank states that as a result of the governing body receiving loans through sovereign bonds, the loans that are taken out through the banks were lessened in the month of February. Experts in the field point out that private sector's borrowing money would assist economic growth as opposed to the government sector doing so.
Now, Newsfirst added another first to the record books today. Newsfirst, which recently brought you its primetime sunrise news bulletin from Independence Square, the Colombo Harbour and Adams Peak, broadcast today's breakfast bulletin from the Bandar Naraka International Airport.
Hello there, a very good morning and welcome to Newsfirst Primetime Sunrise with me, Shane Silva. We are coming to you live from the Bandar Naraka International Airport.
I'm Nicola Dinzoiza. Newsfirst is always prepared to bring you novel experiences with new innovation.
So we're up to Adams Peak, and today we bring you to yet another economic hub of Sri Lanka.
That's right, let's now take a look at your headlines for this morning. Thus this morning, the Director General of the Met Department, Lalit Chandrapala, will elaborate further on this shift in the weather.
Now, leader of the Janasitha Peramuna, Venerable Battaramule Siralatana Thera, submitted a letter to the Chief Justice requesting the law be equally implemented to all.
Venerable Battaramule Siralatana Thera, who arrived at the office of the Chief Justice, requested the security personnel there to be allowed to meet with the Chief Justice. However, his request was denied. Subsequently, representative arrived to receive the letter on behalf of the Chief Justice. Is the law being implemented only on the poor people of this country? Not long ago, ministers hurled stones at judges. Judges could not even step into the streets. Certain politicians interfered with the judiciary. They received bail and are pardoned. Then why aren't the poor people receiving pardons from the judiciary? There is one law for the person with money and another for the ministers.
The 78th birth anniversary of late Gamini Fonseca, the renowned actor, politician, governor and deputy speaker, was commemorated today. 12 singers of Sirasa Superstar Season 6 who entered the final round will pay tribute to late Gamini Fonseca and will mark his birth anniversary tomorrow.
Gamini Fonseca, who was born on a day like today in 1936, pursued his primary education at the Presbyterian College in Dehibala. Gamini began his career after auditioning for the movie Rekhava in 1956, took the country by storm after starring in movies including Sandesha, Ranmutuduwa, Getavarayo, Divarayo, Gampereliya and Parasatumal. Entering politics in 1989, Gamini Fonseca assumed duties as a deputy speaker, functioned as a northeastern governor, and also served as a group director of the Capital Maharaja organization. All 12 contestants of Sirasa Superstar are prepared to pay the greatest tribute ever made to a name that is placed firmly on the cinema history books and who departed the world of cinema at the age of 68. Singers of the new generation, the contestants of Sirasa Superstar will sing a rendition of songs featured in movies starred by famous Gamini Fonseca. This edition of the Sirasa Superstar will be telecast on Sirasa TV at 9 p.m. tomorrow. On a day when the old memories of a fellow actor will be kindled, Swarna Mallavarachi is slated to join the panel of judges tomorrow at this special program.
Leader of the National Unity Front and Central Provincial Councillor Asad Sali distributed funds for the development of various institutions in the Kandy district through his decentralized fund. The funds were distributed at the meeting room for the opposition members of the Central Provincial Council for the development of Buddhist, Catholic, Muslim religious places and other public places in the Kandy district.
On to news from the region. Reuters reports say that a 6.7 magnitude earthquake has struck off India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. According to the US Geological Survey, the quake was at a depth of 6.2 miles, about 68 miles southeast of the Nicobar Islands in the Indian Ocean. The Domestic Disaster Management Centre assured the public that the quake would not affect Sri Lanka.
Malaysia's Defence Minister and Acting Transport Minister Hishamuddin Hussein says that investigators have not received evidence so far that two objects spotted by satellite in the Indian Ocean come from a missing passenger jet. Aircraft and ships are searching for the objects in remote and stormy seas off Australia that Malaysia's government called a credible lead in the transcontinental hunt for the jetliner missing for nearly 2 weeks.
The large objects, which Australian officials said were spotted by satellite 5 days ago, are the most promising finding as day searchers cover a vast area for the plane that went missing on March 8th, with 239 people on board.
Reports all morning, nothing positive with corroborated news yet. As I announced yesterday, there's so many vessels and aircraft heading in that direction. But as we speak now, at the moment, I have not found anything concrete as yet. You must appreciate the area that they are searching is huge. We are also looking at weather conditions, but let me assure everybody here that the equipment, the Poseidon, the Orions, they are one of the most sophisticated assets.
An international search force resumed the hunt for missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 in the remote southern Indian Ocean as authorities pored over satellite data to try and confirm a potential debris field. The Australian-led mission said it was sending 5 aircraft back to a storm-lashed sea some 2,500 kilometers southwest of Perth.
Been throwing everything we've got at that area to try to learn more about what this debris might be. Now, it could just be a container that's fallen off a ship. We just don't know, but we owe it to the families and the friends and the loved ones of the almost 240 people on flight MH370 to do everything we can to try to resolve what is as yet an extraordinary riddle.
Chinese naval vessels have moved towards the southern Indian Ocean, where objects possibly related to missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 were found through satellite imagery. The 5 Chinese naval ships on the mission are expected to arrive in the suspected waters in 5 days. The China Maritime Search and Rescue Center has contacted the State Oceanic Administration of China and requested the Chinese Antarctic research icebreaker Zhulong or Snow Dragon, now anchored in Australia's Perth, be sent to the search area as soon as possible. India has sent 2 aircraft from the Andamans to join the hunt for the missing Malaysian Airlines plane in the southern Indian Ocean. India is also sending another P-81 and 4 warships to search the Andaman Sea, where the plane was last seen on military radar on 8 March. The search for the plane also continues in other regions, including the wide arc sweeping northward from Laos to Kazakhstan.
First up on Sports Tonight, we take a quick look at the score in the ongoing ICC World T20 match between India and Pakistan, where a short while ago India were on 94 runs for the loss of 3 wickets, requiring another 38 runs for victory. Also in the ICC World T20 today, the Netherlands progressed to Group 1 of the tournament this evening when they stunned Ireland by reaching the set target with a run rate of 13.95 runs per over. Batting first, Ireland posted a mammoth 189 runs for the loss of 4 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Andrew Pointer smashed 57 of 38 deliveries, which comprised of 4 big hits over the fence and 4 to the boundary line. Opener William Porterfield hammered 47 of 32 with 2 sixes and 5 boundaries. Hassan Malik bagged 2 wickets for the Irish. Chasing 189 to win, the Netherlands got off to a brilliant start with an opening stand of 91 runs between Peter Boren and Stefan Myberg. Boren fell on 31, while Myberg, who smashed a fast half-century with 7 big hits over the line, was dismissed for 68. Logan Van Beek, who came in next, was dismissed for 1 run, and the score was 100 for 3 at this stage. Wesley Baresi and Tom Cooper added more fireworks to the Dutch assault and guided the Netherlands to a resounding 6-wicket win over Ireland with 37 balls to spare.
Elton Chigumbura belted an unbeaten half-century to help Zimbabwe beat the United Arab Emirates by 5 wickets at the Gillette Stadium earlier today. UAE playing for pride after their opening defeats to Ireland and Netherlands were put into bat first. United Arab Emirates notched 116 runs for the loss of 9 wickets in their 20 overs. Swapnil Patel top scored with 30 runs while Kuram Khan chipped in with 26. Sean Williams bagged 3 wickets for 15 runs for Zimbabwe. Chasing 117 to win, Zimbabwe were in trouble at 34 for the loss of 4 in 7 overs, but Chigumbura turned the tide with his half-century in just 21 deliveries. Timisen Maruma finished with an unbeaten 22, sharing in the unbroken 55-run 6-wicket stand with Chigumbura that took the game away from the UAE.
The big match encounter between DS Senanayake College Colombo and Mahanama College Colombo commenced today at the Pisara Oval in Colombo.
Batting first, DS Senanayake College posted 266 runs on the board for the loss of 5 wickets. Uwin Bandara scored a century for DS Senanayake while Kavin Bandara scored 90 runs. At close of play today, Mahanama College Colombo were on 78 runs for the loss of 4 wickets. The Battle of Maroons in the Hill Capital commenced today between Dharmaraja College Kandy and Kingswood College Kandy. Batting first, the Kingswood players posted a first innings score of 203 runs at the Askeri International Stadium. Dharmaraja that commenced their reply were 121 runs for the loss of 3 wickets at stumps. The lowest quarrel between Richmond College Gaul and Mahinda College Gaul commenced today at the Gaul International Cricket Stadium. Batting first, Richmond College declared their innings on 257 runs for the loss of 9 wickets with A.K. Tyrone top scoring with 137 runs. At stumps today, Mahinda College Gaul were on 82 runs for the loss of 4 wickets.
Well, with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. As always, it's a pleasure having you with us. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Minoshi Ratnasekara.
And I'm Nadim Majid, wishing you an enjoyable weekend ahead. Good night and good luck.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.